Here's my script. Could you read it?
Okay, yeah, and move that
Let's
script over
edit
here.
this part
Yeah.
out, okay? Going 10-1.
Rain dance, Sundance, Con.
Let's do this.
You guys ready?
Quiet
Thank you
on
so
set.
much for this award. Ready and action.
Welcome back to Mel Moment Mondays. I'm your host, Mel, and today we have a very special guest from way down under in New Zealand, Kirsty Cameron. Thank you so much for coming on.
I'm so excited to finally talk to you face to face, Mel. This is really cool.
I know it's been a while. We met in what, 2021, 2020 online?
Was it that long ago? No, it was not.
Yeah, no, it was.
That's unbelievable. It doesn't feel that long. I can't believe that. That's so
I know it
long.
doesn't
That's
feel that
great.
long. It does
No.
not feel that long, but it's been cool to see you progress in your filmmaking career. So, what got you into filmmaking? Like what, got you interested in everything?
Yeah. It's funny. Like if you ask any of my friends and family, they'll tell you I was born to be a filmmaker. But I never really took notice of how much my obsession and passion with filming, it was so prevalent through my childhood. Like I remember going to Movie World in Australia, like one of the theme parks, and just being so obsessed with the behind the scene Foley and everything that I was learning. And when I was 12, I was a young model and I got a role in a New Zealand film just as an extra. And I remember being on set in the film, and one of the pro actor guys asked me, he's like, "Oh, do you want to grow up to be an actor?" And I was so enthralled with the camera crew and the director and what everybody else was doing. And I even remember saying to him, "No, I want to do what they're doing." But I never consider it as a career. I don't know why. I had a baby young, so I was 19 when I had Ash, and he was just my whole world. So I never really focused on a career. But once he got a little bit older, I just really started to have this like just feeling in me that I really wanted to pursue filming of some sort. I was always filming stuff with friends. If I got together with my family for like a board game night, I'd make like a little edit on iMovie, which used to drive everybody insane because I'd always have my camera in their face. And so now it makes a lot of sense that I'm into it. But if you had asked me yeah, I don't know. I don't know why I didn't see it as a career. I think I just always thought it was my hobby.
A hobby that turned into your career. That's awesome.
Yeah.
For those of the people that are listening right now who aren't that familiar with the New Zealand film industry and like what goes on down there, can you kind of explain like the geography and like what the industry is like in New Zealand?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've probably got two different types of industry. You've got New Zealand film, which is your documentaries and your dramas, and then you've obviously got television as well. And then you have sort of the freelance side of things, which is your videographers and photographers. So I'm more predominantly in the freelancing videography sort of section, if you'd call it. So I don't know an awful lot about New Zealand filmmaking, but I'm slowly branching into it. I do actually have two documentaries that have been released in New Zealand, but I can't say that I went the usual route that you're supposed to go. I didn't get funding. I don't know how to do any of that. I just picked up my camera and made them. So there's a lot of freelancers, which is really cool. It's quite easy in New Zealand to start your own business. You just sort of start your own business. There's really not a lot of hoops to jump through. There's a couple of legalities, but it's not a tricky thing to do. So yeah, those are probably the two main streams. Freelancing is more what I'm like familiar with. But yeah, the New Zealand film industry is something I'm really trying hard to break into.
And for the two, I guess it was features that you said that you made or documentaries, kind of?
Two docos, yeah, two feature-length documentaries.
Yeah, so did you made those before you started your company, correct?
That's correct. So I made Though I Walk, released in 2020. So I was studying at the time. I studied a Bachelor of Design, and so it was sort of a mixed study where I did a little bit of game design, 3D animation, filming, photography. It was a whole mixture. And for our final project, we had to just do a creative project. And what started out is it was meant to be a 5-minute interview with my friend, and it turned into a feature-length documentary that ended up on TV, which was amazing. And I'm nobody special. I'm just super determined. So if anyone's like, wow, how did she do it? I don't know, just do it. Just like believe in yourself and do it. And so then my second documentary released this year, and we had a theatre release. I just I hired the theatre. So I just hired a theatre out for 2 sessions across the weekend, and we had a huge release there. And that one I think is going to potentially go up and down New Zealand. There's a couple of film industry peeps who are a little bit interested in it. So yeah, that's really exciting.
Oh, that's so exciting. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh. Do you
Yeah.
think that contributed into you like wanting to create your business afterwards? Like, oh,
Oh,
you had
yes, that's
success
what you're
with your
asking.
little, you had like,
Yeah,
the
thank you.
little feature and then,
Yeah.
progressed into something bigger.
Yeah, absolutely. I knew I wanted to do so. Yeah, did though I walk in 2020, and then yeah, I knew I wanted to just make stuff. So I didn't know what that looked like. All I knew is that I loved making things with my camera, and I wanted to get paid to do it, and eventually get paid to make films every year. So that's yeah, definitely what launched AppleBox, and I just started literally offering videos to people left, right, and center, usually for like free or like a couple of $100, or just me going, hey, can I please film this so I can practice? Yeah, and that's how it started, and it's just progressively grown from there.
What how did you choose the name Apple Box? I know like everyone knows about what an Apple Box is, but why
Yeah,
specifically? Was there anything behind it? Was there like an inside joke or like
I wish it was that cool, but I mean, it was it was me trying to come up with a cool name that was. I wanted something catchy. I wanted something that stuck in your head. And I went through a lot of like something rather media and something rather productions. In the end, I was like, let me just Google a whole lot of film set terms, and I was looking at words like gaffer, and then I looked at Applebox, and I just like the way it sounds when you say it. It's kind of cutesy. It's kind of yeah, Applebox. And then when I read the definition, that's what really stood out to me, is that an Applebox is like the most used uh like thing on a film set, and it's used for propping up and it's used for supporting. And that was a little bit special to me because that's really my personality. I like to support people and encourage people. So there is a little bit of a meaning behind it, but honestly, I just Googled a bunch of names and picked like the top one,
creativity at its finest? Finding a
right?
name is so hard. Like trying to
Mm.
find the name of anything, you're like, I've started using those like AI generators. Like,
Yes. Yes, I did the same thing, but it kept giving me like really cheesy names I didn't like. So, yeah.
what was like one challenge that you found starting out, trying to get clients and stuff? Like, how was that, like starting out compared to where you are now? I mean, I see you do a bunch of stuff now, which is like super cool, like with models, and you kind of you like rent out a studio, I think, and everything like that. So, how did you what was your starting process?
Yeah, starting process was just going to, like I said, anyone within my circles and asking them if they wanted a video of anything. So my first gig was a art gallery in Christchurch, really cool urban art gallery, and they were friends of mine. And I just said, "Hey, can I film one of your open nights?" I'm probably pretty lucky in the fact that my personality is I'm really into networking. I love talking to people. I find it really easy. So that's a blessing for me. I didn't find it so difficult to get clients because I'm super chatty and outgoing. And I know that's not everybody. So I think my advice is always just start with your actual direct circle, start with your friends and family, and just yeah, put yourself out there and keep asking. Just ask people if they want videos. But I think the biggest challenge I came into was moving from free videos and cheaper videos to having to actually value my time and charge. And that's really difficult because in New Zealand specifically, there's no real benchmark for pricing. So I didn't know what the value of a video was, and there wasn't really anybody at the time for me to ask, "Hey, what do you charge?" So it's been a bit of trial and error. I'm really lucky now. I've got a really good community of filmmakers that are around me, and we're all pretty transparent, which is really rare. Very transparent with everything, and so that's helped a lot of us kind of keep the market, especially in Christchurch, pretty like stable. But that was a big challenge, was learning to put a price on something that I love. I had a lot of guilt around that.
Yeah, I find that that's like one of the hardest things for me too, especially as like, just kind of like emerging as a filmmaker in New York City and trying to like price yourself. I feel like that's really hard because like, on one end you're like, oh, I need to, support myself with this. But on the other end, you're like, oh, like you don't want to like, make something too expensive for like a really cool project and like the person you're working for, but also on the other side, it's just this back and forth, really.
Yeah.
I know it really differs depending on what city you're in here in the US. Is that kind of the same thing in New Zealand where, if you went to Wellington or Auckland, you
Mm.
would have to maybe price yourself higher, or,
Mm.
have you explored, going up to those areas as well?
I haven't personally traveled out of Christchurch for filming yet, but I would imagine, yeah, if you're going up to sort of the more saturated markets like Auckland and Wellington are our biggest film industry cities. And I think, yeah, you would definitely have to adjust your pricing as well. They're probably a little bit more cutthroat, a little bit more go get 'em, but I think that's because of the market they have. There's a lot of work up there, but there's also a huge saturation of very, very talented individuals that you're coming up against. So I haven't personally ventured into those cities or had to deal with that. But it's still definitely a challenge. Like you said, because you're so passionate about something, it can be so hard to put a price on it. Be like, but I need to eat. It's kind of important. And yeah, I think the way I balance it now is I'm always open to doing free or low cost jobs if it's something I'm really passionate about, and if I really want to help see people uh, have a quality of work that they wouldn't be able to afford normally. So I'm always very open to that. But a lot of the time, how I balance that guilt is I run a lot of free collaborative events with friends where we do a shoot together. And like you mentioned, the studio space, I manage a studio space in Christchurch, another amazing perk. And so I'll put on these collaborative shoots where it's just friends getting together. Nobody gets paid. The models are working for free. Everyone works for free. And it's kind of a way, I think, to have that creative outlet, uh, which sort of balances the guilt that you feel for sending these invoices.
What do you think is like your favorite part about working in Christchurch itself?
Oh my gosh. I actually did an interview the other day where we're gonna have a counter that counts up the amount of times I say the word community, because I say it all the time. But the Christchurch community, so Ototahi Christchurch, is unlike anything I've experienced. It's really collaborative. I mean, most of my friends are freelancers. And so we're all direct competition. And I mean, we're direct competition. We all go after the same niche, the same clients. I've been up against my friends for clients before. And I think it's just amazing that there's this real effort. It's a conscious effort, at least what I've seen, of people trying to be mindful of each other, be supportive of each other, realize that if you lift up one, you lift up everybody. I know it sounds cheesy, but I love cheesy. I think it's great. And I do know from speaking to other creatives, perhaps from Auckland, that that's just really unheard of, that it's not common to, we'll sit down and do editing sessions together. And like I said, we talk about, hey, what would you quote for this job? Like, who does that in a competitive field? I just think it's amazing. So for me, the words community, I'm very, very proud of our Christchurch community of creators. I think they're awesome. Yeah.
That's really unique. I feel like, yeah,
Mm,
most bigger industries, it is very cutthroat, and people are wanting to kind of step all over each other to like get
mm.
that one job. And like, if someone needs help, someone's like, well, and like gives them maybe the most basic answer on how to solve whatever problem they're having. But like that's so cool. Like editing sessions and like, like having that community is just, it's awesome. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was really important. I'm not the only person who's, everybody's worked together to create this, but what I noticed working at the studios, we have a rental house. So people will come and rent gear off us a lot. So I was meeting all these creatives, and I'd always say, "Oh, do you know so and so?" And they'll go, "Oh, no, I haven't really met them," or "Oh, I follow them on Instagram, but I haven't really connected with them." And I just love people. So I was like, I see a problem that I can help fix. And so I was like, right, let's get everybody together. I call myself the mother hen. And the reason I wanted to is I was seeing the same problems were coming up in conversations with these people. Someone would come and collect a lens and they'd talk about imposter syndrome, or they'd talk about how they didn't know what to invoice or quote, or they didn't know how to light something. And I just thought, gosh, there's so many people with such a wealth of knowledge. And if we can kind of come together, we can all help each other out. And it just helps you feel less alone. It's a very lonely business being a freelancer in any trade, but especially in creativity. because it's usually just you, especially
Right.
if you're start to finish, if you're directing, shooting, editing, it's just you. And then the only other people you're really interacting with, unless you've got a crew, is the client. So I just wanted to see people have friends who are in the same industry. That was my whole mission, and it seems to be working.
It does seem to be working.
Yeah.
So so I know like, as you if you freelance, you're mostly working by yourself, but like filming is a lot about teamwork and working with others. How do you go about hiring other people to help you on shoots and also how do you reach out to clients, besides those friends, that you're kind of doing favors for each other. If you have a company that's like, oh, really cool or, high end,
Mm.
how do you grab those clients and, make them choose you as that person to film whatever
Yeah.
they need?
Yeah. No idea, but I'm giving it a go.
Go for it.
I don't have a foolproof plan. This is what I think is the best thing for anyone, especially if you're starting out or maybe if you've been in the industry for a while. I just feel like everyone needs to know that none of us know what we're doing. Like you could look at my Instagram and be like, wow, that's really impressive. I genuinely have no clue what I'm doing. I'm just doing it. So reaching out for clients. Well, I know for myself specifically, I'm really enjoying working with models. And I feel like I'm leaning kind of into that beauty fashion niche. So I would love to go for some big brands. And I don't really know how to do that, but my plan is to make a show reel and then just get networking. So just trying to email, same as what I did when I first started out, just emailing, going, putting yourself out there and going, hey, this is what I can do. It's about backing yourself. I think I'd be really great. I'd love to do like a trial or I'd love to do a case study with you, like just putting out those options and being willing to maybe not get paid initially to try and land those gigs. I think that would be the only advice I would have to offer. Do you have any tips for me on how to land clients?
I mean, I'm kind of the same way. You email, yeah, networking. I feel like that's
Mm,
something that kind of like it's so you can't really teach that at the,
mm.
but it's like you just like being nice to people.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it is so hard for me to comment because I'm so extroverted and I don't know what it's like to be introverted. I can imagine it would be really difficult, but finding a way that works for you to connect with clients. Maybe if you're better with the written word, you could do it that way. But yeah, your best bet is networking. Start with friends and expand from there. Friends are friends, and that's probably the best way to go.
Yeah, and then how do you choose who to bring on to these bigger projects, How do you choose those people?
Yeah.
There's so many and do you choose your friend or like someone maybe more professional?
Yeah, such a good point because, of course, you don't want to then, because the way that clicks are created, and I'm so aware of this with what we're doing, is the way that clicks are created is when you just start to only have it internal and then you unintentionally create a click, and we don't want that. So that's always a challenge for me because I love my friends and they are also so talented. So I generally do look to friends first. However, through the collaborative shoots that I've been putting on, I try and keep those really open to people I haven't worked with before. And through there, I'm making newer connections because you don't want to limit yourself either. It's great to have a relationship. It does make a crew and the set and the day flow a lot easier. But then you also don't want to limit yourself because there could be someone out there you haven't worked with before who, like you said, is exceptionally talented. So I think you've got to be a little bit careful. Definitely look after your friends, but be open to working with other people, or you're just going to limit yourself.
Right, right. That's for sure. Yeah, I find it, I mean, the friends are the easiest people to go to, but at some point sometimes you're like, "Oh, maybe give someone else a try, for
Mm.
that one shoot and see how you guys like work together, right?"
Yeah. I mean, that's how you make new friends too. Yeah.
And then you have more friends.
I know. Really talented one.
So you do mostly like corporate shoots, but you've done docs before. W are you interested in more narrative films as well, or like is there anything that like you're if you had an unlimited budget and a choice of whomever and a studio of wherever, what would be like your go-to film or project or
Such a good question. Because I'm like, I don't know. I would really love to step into narrative. I feel like that would be so fun to do. Definitely a little more out of my comfort zone. as in I wouldn't really even know how to go about it. Documentary feels really natural to me, just because I love talking to people and hearing their stories. So I think, do you know, I might be even more tempted if I had an unlimited budget, I probably would do another documentary, but I would do it at a much higher production level. But I'm definitely open to, yeah, shooting a narrative would be fun. I'd love to do a thriller. I don't think I'm a comedy girl. I don't think I could pull it off.
Comedy's
But
hard.
yeah, I think you've got to be really clever. I'm not very clever. But I think like a thriller or something kind of dark or heavier would probably be right up my alley.
Do you have any favorite films that like you would draw from or you draw from currently in your work? Like, oh, like that editing's good from this guy or that movie is good. Like, what are your
I'm
favorites?
so my favorite movies at the moment are the Quiet Place series.
Oh, did you
I
watch
just
the new one? Has it come out in New Zealand yet? Okay.
Yes, it has. No spoilers. I really loved it. It was great. It was nice to step away from the current characters we were with and look at a different perspective. But yeah, A Quiet Place blew my mind. I thought the use of sound or the lack of sound was just so genius. It was really engaging. It felt new. It felt fresh. I think that's probably what I would love to do is I'd love to make something that just stood out in that way somehow. I just, for me, I don't know what other people's opinions of the film is, but for me, I thought that was revolutionary. Just like, I could barely breathe the whole time, it's just on the edge of my seat. And I felt like I wasn't breathing properly. And I thought, wow, what a talent to be able to make people feel that way. I thought that was really fascinating.
So cool. Yeah, no, A Quiet Place. I'm not like a huge horror girly, but A Quiet Place, that is the franchise I will continue to watch.
I was surprised that they classed it as a horror. I didn't realize it. I would have thought it was like sci-fi thriller. I don't know what the classification is for horror though.
I don't know either. It's kind of like it kind of bleeds into other genres. I feel like it's more of a monster movie, like a monster thriller,
Mm.
you know?
Yeah, like a sci-fi thriller.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I loved it. I thought they were brilliant. Otherwise, I think there's movies that I really appreciate, as I'm sure you will as well. I think the biggest thing for me is always the story. Is if I feel captivated, if I feel taken on a journey, that's probably the biggest thing I focus on. I can appreciate great lighting and I can appreciate great editing, but my heart's always storytelling. So the kind of film that I can't stop talking about, that's the kind of film I want to make.
So how does you say story is your like the most important thing like that goes into a film? How does that contribute or how do you put that into your corporate work? Are you if story is number one, what else is important to you too, or what else do you find interesting, like cinematography or editing or audio, or do you have other people do that for you?
Yeah, so predominantly it's just me in the freelance in my freelance business. I am really interested in cinematography. Audio is not my strong suit. I have a very, very talented friend who did the audio on my doco, just been. So he gets all my questions because that is well over my head. Um, but I think when it comes to corporate, storytelling's really challenging. If you're doing a commercial, obviously you've got time, there's a narrative there. What I find super challenging, and I'm sure lots of people will be able to relate to this, is your short form content on social media. When you've got 5, 6, 7 seconds to tell a story, how is that even possible? To grab attention, the disposable content, I can find that really challenging as a storyteller because I really want to do something a little bit more long form, but there is such a demand for short form content. So that can be a challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, I find that also a challenge, with I'm gonna sound so antiquated, but I just like got TikTok the last
I don't
couple
have it.
weeks.
I
Okay,
don't
that's
have
good.
it.
That's good. I downloaded it, posted a couple things, and I was like, I'm not using it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do find that so hard to, I'm in this very like narrative mindset, where you have shorts that are 15 minutes or you're, writing 40-minute, pilots or even longer features and whatnot. Like to condense that into like again like 10 seconds, I find that really difficult to navigate as a freelancer myself, because a lot of people want that type of content, and I don't know whether or not, I usually try and stay away from it. I'm like, oh, I prefer to do this. Like, would you be interested in this? And then if they really want that kind of content creation, I'm like, oh, maybe you need to find someone else because I'm just not creative in that type of 10-second mindset. Do you feel the same way, or how do you go about like creating these 10-second short reels for these clients?
Yeah, it's such a challenge, hey, because disposable content is so popular now. And I think also to add on to the challenge of cutting down footage to 10 seconds is also that iPhone footage and even like crappy iPhone footage has become really readily accepted. That's the word. And I'm finding people more hesitant to hire someone of a higher quality, higher cinematography quality, because they just want. I've actually had clients ask me, like, can you just shoot it on iPhone? And I'm like, I'm gonna cry. I've got my beautiful FX6. You want it on an iPhone? Break my heart. It is challenging. I've kind of adapted with some of my more corporate clients where I will do a shoot because I do a lot of fashion. So I'll do a shoot. I'll generally do like a highlight reel of the drop or the collection, the summer collection, winter collection. And then I've started doing a B-roll handover. So what I actually do is I just make sure the footage is beautifully color graded. I trim it up, but I don't edit it. I don't put it to music, and I actually hand it over to them for a cost. And then they're free to make reels as they want to, as needed, but from really high quality footage. And so that's a way that I've had to kind of adapt because clients weren't happy to pay editing rates for all these short form videos. It was kind of getting up there in price for them. So I really had to adapt. Um, I'm comfortable with it now, but my heart, like you said, my heart's always going to be longer form and narrative and storytelling. Um, but you got to do what you got to do to pay the bills. Like if that pays the
Right.
bills, and and remembering that you're still upskilling, you're still editing, you're still learning. It's all bricks in a road that'll eventually lead you somewhere. But like an individual brick doesn't look very interesting, right? It's just like, what is this even for? But it's a brick in the road. Just put it down, walk on it, and eventually you might get to like, where you really want to be. At least that's how I see it.
Right, right. Yeah, you got to be optimistic and just,
Mm,
it's like one little job. There's so many
yeah.
more. Yeah,
Yeah, and you,
exactly.
you never know where that's gonna lead to. And as long as you're constantly working on your craft in any space, it's not wasted, even if you don't really enjoy it as much as doing a documentary or doing a short film.
Right. Can you walk me through like kind of the process of, once you shoot the footage, how do you what's your I feel like everyone has a little bit of a different process of how they edit it and then deliver it to the client, like how do you go about like kind of negotiating that? Like what's your turnaround time, stuff like that? How do you
Oh,
dictate that?
question. Really good question. Turnaround time generally for me depends on client. I'm really lucky that I don't have a lot of 24-hour turnarounds. I've got friends who shoot a lot of events and they are sitting at the event doing edits that night. And I look up to them so much. I'm like, better you than me. Um, Turnaround time usually for like my big fashion shoots is probably 1 to 2 weeks. I was taught from day one, I did a film internship, which was really, really helpful. And I was taught that your job is not over until you get home and back up your cards. So that's the number one thing. It does not matter if I get in at 1 a.m. from a music video shoot, those cards are getting backed up to numerous places. And if people are watching and they don't have a good backup system, we need to talk about that. It's really important. And so once my footage is backed up, then I run proxies because I edit off a 2017 iMac. Like it is slow and it is going to die. But so I run proxies, and yeah, that's my process. When it comes to actually editing, I don't know. Do you want to talk about the actual sequence breakdown of how I edit, or is that not overly
Yeah, sure.
interesting?
Go for it. Go for it.
Oh, like how do you edit? I'm just curious whether I edit differently. Like as in, so what software are you in?
Oh, I primarily use Adobe Premiere. How about you?
Same. Yeah, I
Yeah,
use Premiere.
Premiere.
Everyone's trying to get me to move to DaVinci, but I like Premiere.
I it I feel like it's the new hip thing. I mean, like it's obviously the number one for color grading, but
Mm.
because it's free, I feel like it's one of those really accessible things to many people. So I guess that's why it's becoming more popular. But I do think Adobe is better in the terms of when you need to actually cut a clip together.
Yeah, I always feel like Adobe's kind of that red flag ex-boyfriend that I keep going back to. Just in in the terms of how much it crashes sometimes. I'm like, it's okay. A new update's coming. It's going to change. It never does. Um, but no, I'm so fast in Premiere. I just can't find the time to switch to DaVinci. Um, so I used to color grade in DaVinci, but I've actually stopped doing that as much. But what I try to do with my editing is like non-destructive. So that was the way I was taught. I was taught sort of a broadcast style of editing, which is I find it super helpful and it's pretty simple. You have, if you're in Premiere, you have your sequence and you have a raw sequence. That's where all your footage gets dumped into. You go through and you make your cuts and you bump them up onto the next line. You scoop them up, chuck them into another sequence, which is your selects, and then you just slowly dwindle it down until you're working on your edit. So it means I can go back at any time and all of my raw footage is there in a timeline and I can see what I've pulled up and what I haven't used instead of going in, when you've got your bin up here and you're setting your in and out and then you're pulling it in. I find that a lot easier way is to do non-destructive editing. But it's saved me so many times when I've gone back and I've needed to find something. So that's how I do it. I don't know how you edit.
Yeah, no, that's like a great way to edit. I feel like everyone has their own kind of style, but there's definitely like I'm definitely like not an editor. That's like the
Oh,
one.
really?
Yeah, no, not at all. Like I mean,
Oh,
if it's something really small, I can definitely do it, but it's definitely not my strong suit at all.
okay.
If I had my choice, I'd send it over to someone and it'd be like make it look pretty and I'm
Yeah.
done.
Hi. Send it to me. Send it my way. Oh, that's so interesting. I didn't know that about you. Of course, it's wrong of us to assume that anyone enjoys a particular part of filming, but for me, editing is probably the one thing I would struggle to let go of.
Wow.
Um, yeah, I did a shoot recently where I was just directing. I don't know if you saw the black and white dance one on our page.
I think I saw a couple clips of it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that one was a collaborative shoot just for fun with friends. And I was the role of director. And I was going to edit the footage, but I actually was in a really bad headspace mentally. And I just wasn't able to put anything creative into it. So I handed it over to my friends, totally capable, and blew me away with his edit. So that was the first time that I was just directing. So I didn't touch a camera, I didn't touch the lighting. I managed the whole thing, obviously. But I came away from that and went, oh, I don't know if I like just directing. I felt like
Interesting.
I felt like I didn't have ownership of the shoot. There was no not entire ownership. Obviously, it was collaborative, but it felt like I didn't do anything, which was really interesting. Because I always thought I wanted to be a director. And I thought, oh, I don't know if I want to let go of some of the roles and just be a director. It just,
That's
I don't know.
that's so interesting because I love directing. I feel like, like but I also like I'm like I definitely like have my hand on the camera at the same time the whole entire
Yeah.
shoot. So I'm kind of like I don't know. But
Yeah.
like no, but I like kind of, stepping back and kind of being a more managerial role, but also like
Mm.
just kind of overseeing it and just thinking about the creative part of it and not like having to think, oh, like what about the dailies that I have to edit afterwards or the sound or X, Y, and Z, X, Y, and
Mm.
Z.
Yeah. It was just interesting. Yeah, just because I always thought I want to be a director. I knew that I will still want to edit, but I still thought, oh, I just want to direct. I don't really care about holding the camera. Well, it turns out I kind of do. I like having my hands on because then I feel like I've really like given to the shoot. Even though I oversaw the whole thing and it was my vision and the crew brought it together, it just didn't feel quite the same. So I'll tuck that away to process. These will be like 3 a.m. thoughts of like, what am I doing?
So with your business, like legally, did you have to get like any permits or to like make it official, or is it just kind of like an LLC, or how did you go about that part of creating the process?
I have a feeling someone from New Zealand's going to watch this and shake their head. I didn't do any permits. I didn't do anything. I just started the business. I even Googled before our Zoom. I was like, what do I need to do to start a business in New Zealand? I don't think there's any legalities that I haven't done that I needed to. The only thing we really have to watch out for in New Zealand is once you reach a certain threshold of earning, you need to be registered for GST. But aside from that, I don't think there is a lot of legalities. I do know that I can register my company, and after this chat, I'm going to go and check out whether that's something I should be doing. What's it like in the US? What do you need to do?
I feel like, well, there's there's, your sole proprietorship, you're like freelance, you're just, by yourself. And then, I feel like a lot of people start LLCs. I don't know if that's like a big thing down there to create an
What's an
LLC.
LLC?
Oh,
Educate me.
okay. So it's like it's above like just being your own self-contractor, basically. It's like you can have multiple people like kind of own the assets of that company, or like
Okay.
collaborate with you, and the taxes go, in different areas. Um, so I feel like that's like one of the most popular, like here at least. It's like I feel like every other YouTube commercial is like start your LLC with blankety blank,
Oh.
like website or whatever, which is I feel like, a lot of people do that. But I've been working off of just like self-contracting, freelancing, sole
Mm,
proprietorship, and that's worked out really, really well for me, especially since I don't necessarily have a team with
mm,
me. I do primarily just work by myself. I've wanted to start like, maybe, adding other people, but then it gets hard with like who gets what and how do you delegate the
mm,
the, the final sum of like for the client, right?
mm.
Um but yeah, I feel like there's a lot more legal stuff that you have to jump through in the US just in general. Because, with taxes and states too. We have what, 50 states?
Ah, yeah, of course. And it's different. Seriously, I'm super uneducated with stuff like this. So it's different from each state, right?
Yeah, and it gets super
Yeah.
complicated. You're like in one state and it's like okay to do this, and you're like checked off in that state, and you go to another one, you're like, "Oh no, I have to register for five more things." You know?
Oh my gosh, that's insane. And so when you're talking about like bringing on a contractor, so the way it works here in New Zealand with freelancing is a client comes to me and they're like, we want to do this great big commercial. And I'm like, great, I'm going to need 3 or 4 friends to help me out here. So those friends then tell me we basically work in half day and full day rates. I don't know if that's the same. And so then I just factor that in and charge the client. So it's pretty straightforward for us when it comes down to who gets what, because everybody kind of sets their own rates. What's it like for you if you were to bring on a contractor?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't tried that yet, but I know it
Mm,
gets more complicated. I guess I would start with doing kind of the same thing you're doing.
mm.
But then it gets really watery with like the taxes. It's all about taxes here in the US.
Yeah.
And like who, how much, and then legally, I think, who like when you're writing that invoice, like what company is it under? If I'm
Mm,
the one that's heading, and I bring people on, is it my company?
mm.
Or are we all just freelancing for this one person? So it gets kind of like, oh, at that point, like, should I just start the company, kind of thing,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just to
I see
kind
where
of
you're
bring
going.
them on? Or is it, we're all working separately? You kind of have to figure that out beforehand. But that's like hard.
Yeah. Yeah, so we have something similar in New Zealand. Like we'll have agencies. So that's when you have, and maybe what you're talking about with LSE, that's when you'll have a team of people who are creative, like web design, and usually the whole shebang. So if you want to come in as a company and have everything done for you, we have agencies. But generally, what happens is you're an employee, so you're on an hourly rate, and it's a lot lower than what you would get as a freelancer. So if people are coming out on shoots with me, they're always under AppleBox. And like I always say to my clients, my team is scalable to as large as we need it. If we need 20 crew, I've got 20 crew. I'm just gonna go find 20 friends. Um, So it's always under the name of the person who got the client. I've gone out on shoots for my friends' businesses. Wisco is one that I work with a lot. He does a lot of amazing music videos. And a friend of mine, Ollie, we usually shoot together with Matt for Wisco. And then Ollie's got his own business called Evoke. So if I was to go out with him, I'm under Evoke. And when it comes to like your ethics on set, because people always ask you, they're like, oh, so like, is this what you do? And you're like, yeah, I'm contracting for Evoke. I do some of my own work in my own time, but like you just don't say your business names, kind of the given.
Gotcha.
Because on that day you are working for that person, and it's kind of there's a lot of unspoken in New Zealand, I reckon, but we're very laid back people. We don't we don't do contracts. We really should do contracts as freelancers. Hardly any of us do. It's probably pretty bad, but it's usually like your word's pretty good here in New Zealand.
That's fair.
Oh
And
no, it's so
and
bad.
you rent out like a studio space. What were you looking for in a studio, specifically? Because you knew you wanted to do video, but do you do photo as well? Or I know you have other people, renting out your
Mm.
gear as well. Like what did you want out of the space?
Yeah, so the space came to me. So 921 Studios, I'm their studio manager, and they were looking for a staff member. So the studio is 921 Studios. That's got our big cyclorama, and people can hire out the space. And then we run a rental house called Light Chasers Rentals out of it. And they were looking for someone to basically do some admin, and that's how I started out. And from there, I've just grown to the manager position, just kind of naturally. So the studio found me. I had only shot outdoors with natural lighting. I'd never done anything in studio before, but the team have really educated me. The guys that work there have taught me so much about lighting, and now it's probably one of my favorite spaces to shoot. So that, yeah, it was more the studio found me than me looking for a studio. But now that I have it, and of course the perks of being a manager, I have so much great access to it. And that's where I like to hold a lot of our collaborative shoots because it's a controlled space. It's a large space. We have all of the gear. We've got like aperture lighting. We've got all this beautiful gear on site. It's a playground. It is 100% a playground, and I'm very happy to get to play there every day.
Would you want to expand, to different cities, or even, maybe like rent out a bigger space if you could? Would that be a goal of yours?
Yeah, that'd be amazing. So I'm just the manager. It's the owner, Craig, who takes care of all of the finances, and I just get to enjoy the space. We're in a whole block of units, and there's actually a studio space, and I think it's in LA. I can't remember the name of it, and it just looks fantastic, and it's got a whole bunch of different sets. I think that would be phenomenal if we could do that in Christchurch. Not so much just like aimed at content creation, but yeah, if we could have a space where we have a whole lot of different sets that we hire out, that would be fun because it's going to open it up to more people. And I like people and I like to see what they do. So that would be a big goal of mine. Absolutely.
That's fantastic. Oh, that's so exciting. Like I feel like it's like such a, exciting time when your business is kind of like in a good steady spot, but there's so much more that, you can look forward to.
Yeah, so much more. I think that's what I love about the creative industry. It's just you can go any which way you want.
Right.
The world is your oyster, as my mum always says. She told me that when I was younger, and I was like, dang straight, never stop believing it. It's like, yeah, just back yourself, get good people around you, and say yes to as many things as you can say, because you just never know. You never know what's going to turn out. So saying yes to this job at the studio has led to some incredible opportunities.
Right, right.
Mm.
How do you balance work and family? What's kind of the culture there in New Zealand? Because I know America's very everything revolves around work here, and like it
Ah,
almost
interesting.
is like you'll put your work over your family sometimes. And it's hard,
Okay.
hard especially in a film, a film job where, you're working crazy hours sometimes. And I know you have a son. How do you delegate time for him and family and, seeing the parents and everything?
Mm. Yeah, and I think you're right about talking about the film industry. I'm sure it's very different for New Zealand filmmakers because you are on big sets. I'm sure that it demands a lot of your time. Maybe a little bit easier when you're a freelancer and you can set your own hours. Um, but New Zealand, we're really family focused. There's definitely workaholics. I'm actually a workaholic. I have to fight very hard to not work. But I'm so passionate about what I do that when I take a break from it, I just want to be doing it. Um, so I'm very family orientated, and most New Zealanders, we're an island. Islanders are usually very family orientated. I did find it challenging for my heart when I was working on my documentary because it required a lot of my time, a lot of my energy. And so there was a lot of mum guilt, a lot of I'm not spending as much time with my son as I would. I'm a solo mother too, so it's always a little bit harder. But to be fair on myself, my not spending as much time with my son probably looks like heaps of time to somebody else. But for me, it felt like I was having a lot less time with him. I'm so fortunate in so many areas. My family are incredibly supportive. I live a block away from my parents. We're very, very close. So I have a lot of family time. Um, I can't speak for other New Zealanders, but for me, yeah, family would definitely come first. And look, if it came down to it, I love my career so much, but if here's actually a prime example, if you don't mind me sharing one. I
Yeah, go
got
for it.
offered a I got offered a opportunity to apply for a job in Auckland as a network producer, so a TV network producer.
Oh, wow.
Amazing job, incredible opportunity, and lovely, lovely relationship with the network. They're the ones who've got my documentaries on their show. And I remember the phone call with Michael, and he's like, "We'd love to have you interview for the position." And my son at the time was 15. And I said, I'd have to be in Auckland, wouldn't I? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, that's a no. And he's like, oh, can we not talk? And I said, no, it's a no. My son's just in high school. He's 15. His well-being is paramount. Like, I don't want to move him. 15 is such a young age to be moved, to be uprooted from your friends. And so it wasn't even a question. Like, yeah, this was this amazing opportunity. And my life could have gone off on a different path, but I didn't. I don't even consider that a loss because family first, 100%.
And now you have your own company. So
I know. And a documentary, two documentaries.
that's awesome. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna start with the film Would You Rather. And I kind
Oh,
of looked up it's just like a one question, but we could go on a tangent. I was trying to look
let's.
up like different like New Zealand little snacks and whatever and the most popular ones. But
Okay.
if you were on a set and you had to
Uh-huh.
choose between L&P or pineapple lumps, what would you
Oh,
choose?
girl, are you serious?
Yes.
Choose. That's
You could
like our
only
most
take one.
no, that's our most iconic drink and then snack, chocolate snack. Um, oh man. Oh, I feel like I'm gonna lose followers. I think I'd have to go L&P. I love L&P. It's such a good drink. Yeah,
What's the
it's L&P.
flavor? What's the flavor of it for those who don't know? Explain these two snacks.
Okay, so L&P is it's an interesting taste. It's almost like a lemonade, but it's not quite. It's really refreshing and it's really fizzy. Like it's more fizzy than other drinks. Pineapple lumps are a chewy pineapple confectionery covered in chocolate. They'll pull your fillings out, they'll pull your teeth out. They're the most dangerous things to eat, and you can't talk, and your teeth get all stuck together. Both fantastic Kiwi snacks.
That's fantastic. I still need to try. I One of my friends went to New Zealand for a work trip and he came back with like a bunch of snacks and I don't know if he's gotten rid of them, probably ate them or gave them to another person, but he came back with snacks for me to try and I haven't picked them up yet.
I will seriously, if he hasn't got them, I will send you a care package. Just let me know. If he hasn't sent them to you, I will send you Kiwi snacks.
We'll
I
make
want to
it
see your
happen.
reaction. Yeah,
I'll make a
100%.
reaction video for you.
Do. I would love that. That'd be so good.
Oh my goodness. Okay. And then for my final question for you, this is kind of like the overarching question for everyone is what advice would you tell your younger self, if they were first getting into the film industry? You know, it's hard. What would you tell yourself?
Mm, that's so hard. I think, again, speaking to my personality type, I would tell my younger self, regardless of film industry or not, is to really embrace who you are. It's okay to take up space. You know, I would say you were made to be loud. That's who you are. You were made to be loud and excited about the smallest things, and that's actually your superpower. Take up space and yeah, don't diminish your light, don't diminish who you are to try and fit in. with other people. New Zealand has this thing called tall poppy syndrome. Have you ever heard of tall poppy syndrome?
A little bit. Can you explain it?
Yeah, it's a cultural thing. I don't know where it's come from or why we're like this, but New Zealanders can have a real habit of when they see someone succeeding or even just being a little bit out there, they'll really tear you down. New Zealand's known for a lot of things. We're known for our beauty, we're known for our clean green image. But yeah, there's still a lot of issues in New Zealand around societal things, and that's one of them, tall poppy syndrome. So that's what I would tell my younger self. I feel so much more free now where I'm like, I'm just, free to be myself, but I'm almost 40. Could have saved myself years if I just realized that's who you are. So that would be my advice to anybody starting out is embrace who you are and be okay with who the person is in the mirror. It doesn't matter what other people think because it's your life and you've got to live it and you're at the end of it. Like, why would you want to be someone or behave in a certain way to make other people feel comfortable? 100% be yourself and back yourself. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Wise words. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
I've absolutely loved talking to you. I can't believe we've taken 4 years to have a video call.
I know, it's crazy. Oh my gosh.
So
Well,
crazy. But that's the power of like Instagram, right? That's the power of networking. I mean, I feel so honored to have met you. I love our conversations. I love that we've got this friendship and we haven't even met face to face. You're very special to me, Mel. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
oh, of course. How can people find you on the socials?
Oh my gosh, please come find me. Please come talk to me. I'd love to talk to people and hear what you're doing and see what you're doing. So AppleBox NZ. So at AppleBox NZ on Instagram's pretty much where I preside. I'm not really on Facebook. I'm definitely not on TikTok. But come find me. Come find me on Instagram and please jump in my DMs. I love to chat to people. So yeah.
Awesome. Okay, I'll link your stuff down below and yeah, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, girl.
If you enjoyed this podcast and want to learn more about my experience as an up-and-coming filmmaker or catch up on more episodes, follow me on Instagram at MELYDE12. This podcast is also available on Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube. Please like, subscribe, and spread the word. Thank you guys again, and that's a wrap.